Welcome back to the Courtroom Chronicles. Today we're standing just outside the United States Supreme Court building, talking about one of the most pivotal areas in recent memory, the Rehnquist Court. I'm Dom, your host. Joining me are three very different voices to discuss how this area is shaping America. I've got David, a legal scholar with a keen interest in state rights.
Thanks, Dom. I have to say, Rehnquist is a man after my own heart when it comes to federalism. His focus on limiting federal power is just what this country needs.
We know David, and with us too is Rebecca, our intrepid journalist who's been covering civil rights and social justice.
Thanks, Tom. I'm just hoping we can dig into some of the Rehnquist Court's rulings that, frankly, haven't always been so great for individual rights.
And finally, here's John, our law student, who's following these cases closely as he studies court's rulings.
Hi everyone, I can't wait to hear both sides here. I've been studying cases like Planned Parenthood versus Casey in United States versus Lopez. It's fascinating, though a little frustrating at times, to see how Rehnquist is shaping the law.
All right, let's start with some context. This is a late 1980s through early 2000s. The Cold War just ended. The internet is changing how we connect, and political tensions are high. David, you seem pretty excited about Rehnquist court's conservative leanings. Can you tell us more?
Absolutely, Don. Chief Justice William Rehnquist was appointed by President Reagan, and his whole approach is about cutting back on the federal government's reach, especially into states' rights. Just look at the 1995 case, United States versus Lopez. For the first time in half a century, the court struck down a law under the Commerce Clause.
That's huge! In Lopez, they said Congress didn't have any power to ban guns in school zones because it was a matter of interstate commerce. That ruling really reinforced states' rights.
Yes, but it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Sure, the states got more autonomy, but that often means they also have more power to restrict individual rights. Rehnquist rulings are making it harder for the federal government to step in on issues like civil rights.
And rightly so. Not every issue is a federal issue. Rebecca, let's take Bush versus Gore in 2000. The court's decision to halt the Florida recount secured George W. Bush's presidency. The ruling was a reminder of the court's role in upholding order.
That case was controversial, to say the least. John, you've been studying this. Do you think the court's ruling was fair?
It's complicated, Dom. On one hand, Bush v. Gore set a precedent that the court could intervene in political processes. But critics say it opened the court's accusations of partnership. For me, it's kind of a turning point. More people are questioning the court's objectivity.
Exactly, and in the ruling in Bush versus Gore, highlighted just how influential these justices are. But you know, when it comes to individual rights, this court hasn't always been on the right side of history. Take Lawrence versus Texas.
That's one that decriminalized same-sexual activity, right?
Yes, Lawrence versus Texas was groundbreaking. The court struck down sodomy laws affirming privacy rights. This ruling moved us a step closer to real equality. Justice Kennedy wrote a powerful majority opinion, and even though Rehnquist was against it, this case shifted how the court views LGBTQ rights.
That case does illustrate the tension in this court, and it's worth mentioning Planned Parenthood versus Casey, where the court upheld Roe v. Wade but allowed states to place certain restrictions on abortion. O'Connor's opinion in Casey was significant. She introduced the undue burden standard for restrictions, giving states some authority back.
I think the ruling actually set a middle ground. O'Connor was trying to balance protecting individual rights with respecting state power. But this undue burden test still allows states to get pretty restrictive with abortion laws.
It sure does, and that's one reason the Rehnquist court's legacy is so mixed. They've expanded privacy with Lawrence, but Casey opened the door for more restrictions on reproductive rights. And let's not forget the death penalty cases. Atkins versus Virginia and the Roper versus Simmons limited the death penalty for people with intellectual disabilities and juveniles. At least on that front, the court has shown some humanity.
Humanity, yes, but these decisions also set limits on states' ability to handle criminal justice. Rehnquist was skeptical of federal overreach, and his court's emphasis on federalism has reinforced states' rights in many areas. Rightfully so, in my opinion.
You all bring up excellent points. It seems the Rehnquist court walked a fine line between federal power and state rights. Their impact on American law is complex, especially with cases like Lopez, Bush versus Gore, Lawrence versus Texas, and Casey. So, as we stand here in 2003, how do you think the court will be remembered?
I think it'll be remembered for reshaping federalism. The Rehnquist court put limits on Congress, made way for more state autonomy, and reinforced judicial restraint. But it also marked big decisions on social issues, both protecting and sometimes limiting individual rights.
I agree, John. I think it'll be remembered for its conservative tilt, but also unpredictable nature. While Rehnquist pushed for a restrained judiciary, cases like Lawrence showed that even his court was willing to push forward on civil rights.
Yes, though I would say it will be remembered as a court that tried to uphold the Constitution by reigning in federal power and respecting state sovereignty. That's a legacy I respect deeply.
Well, thank you all for sharing your perspectives. The Rehnquist court has certainly left a unique imprint on American law, and it is done will likely to be debating for years to come. To our listeners, we hope that you enjoyed this dive into Rehnquist area. Join us next time for another discussion on the Courtroom Chronicles.